We're the Seattle Women in Design group, bringing you the podcast Beyond Ray, women-led conversations on industrial design.
Hey, Monica. Welcome again. We're so thrilled to have you on our first episode of Women in Design podcast. We met before in spring 2022 when you were our guest and gave presentation about how you pivoted from industrial design to soft goods and how you basically started the career just by yourself and like learning a lot yourself and picked the outdoor industry. We just hinted on some topics which are so interesting and we would like to hear more about, like inclusivity and also the privilege in designing and choosing this path. And also, it's a pity that like the event we had couldn't be attended by so many people, and we would love to put it out there in the world so other people can learn about your career path and also contact with you, get inspired. Someone who has the thoughts if I should be considering doing switch in my career, in my design career, like later than the first year of college. This is a very encouraging story. We would like to have it available to other people who might be like struggling in making a decision or like who need some kind of confirmation that what they're doing, they're not alone with it. And there are many examples of designers who made many decisions before, which can be inspiring for them.
Let's just start with, my name is Monica Welcker. I am an industrial designer with mostly a focus on technical soft goods. So right now I'm working at a company called Big Agnes, where I design primarily backpacks, but also kind of a variety of products for the camping industry and kind of like camping, backpacking, outdoor industry. Previously, I was with a company called Roughwear, where I was designing outdoor products for dogs specifically. And yeah, I got my start, as Margaret alluded to in the introduction, at Virginia Tech, studying industrial design and primarily studying hard goods. So I had kind of a little bit of a pivot and now mostly focused on the outdoor industry and designing products that help get people outside.
I'm going to go ahead and play this first clip about mentorship and the design community.
Cool.
I guess I think the biggest piece of advice is like seek out mentors, like whether it's a formal like chat every week way or if it's just like call them once and ask for their advice kind of thing. I have gotten not cold called. I guess that's kind of a dated term to use, but like I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn that I don't know like a lot. And I actually love talking to students and, anybody that's like just interested in learning more about different outdoor brands and like, do I even want to go into the outdoor industry? Like that kind of stuff is awesome. And I don't know, me being somebody that's been in it for a little bit, like I love being able to share my experience because I had people do that for me when I was in college, and it is just like such a huge help. So I think don't be afraid to like reach out to people on LinkedIn, find people that are doing what you want to do and ask them how they got there. Yeah. But don't just connect with people and not send a message. I always think that's really weird when you just like get a connection randomly and you're like, I don't know this person. And there's no like, hey, I'd love to chat or anything.
So Monica, aside from like, your funny anecdote about manners on LinkedIn, which I think is super true. You're talking a lot about why people should have mentors because it helps them. But like, why do you care about younger designers having support and help? Why do you decide to keep elevating design as a whole instead of just like focusing on your work?
Yeah, I think honestly, there's probably two main motivations for me. One being, I wish that I had that when I was a student more. And one being, it's also super valuable from a professional standpoint to spend time with the younger generation of designers because things are changing and it's super important to stay up to date on kind of where the future of design is going and what's happening in education, because education's always, like academia is always ahead of what's going on in the industry. But I think for kind of the first part of that, I did, when I was in school, reach out to a handful of people that were in the outdoor industry. It was much less of a conversation really, at least in my world, that it was even possible to go into the outdoor industry and design outdoor products than what I see today. But one of my professors did give me a list of people that I was able to reach out to and call and, just ask their advice. And it was super helpful. I got like some of those conversations resulted in portfolio reviews, feedback on sketches, validation that it's okay to not start in the outdoor industry, which is, in some cases more helpful than anything. Just validation that your path is okay. But I think for me, like, if I would have had more mentorship at that time, I think I would have felt a lot better about where I was, and just had a better package to offer companies that I was applying to. Like, I did have my path work out pretty well for me, but I see students now. I'm a mentor for a couple different programs. I work with Virginia Tech still with their senior thesis program. And then I also work with Offsite, which if you haven't heard of Offsite, you should Google it. It's really cool. But they essentially pair you up with a student every class, and they do their best to align the student's interests with where the professional is. And I see such a variety of skill sets in both of those programs. And so I think design education really just isn't incredibly consistent across the board. And I think having mentors allows the playing field to be leveled a little bit, even if you're not at the most prestigious design school. I'm a super blunt person. And so I've been super real with my mentors. If one of their skills isn't up to par, or, maybe their resume isn't allowing their skills to shine in the way that it could. But to me, that's such a valuable thing to have from somebody that's in the industry, maybe somebody that's on the other side reviewing those portfolios and resumes and things like that. And to have that firsthand account of, okay, if I received this package from you of your skills, here's why or why not I would look twice at it. And here's what I would do to improve it to make it shine. So for me, it's just looking back on, my time as a designer and all of the voids that I had in my work that I just didn't even know were there, until I eventually was lined up with some people that were in the career path that I was looking to go into and wanting to kind of give back to that community. But then on the other side, the kind of the selfish motivation, really, like, nothing's really fully altruistic, but the selfish motivation is like, I don't know. I've had some mentees doing some crazy stuff. Like one of the gals that I worked with through the Virginia Tech program recently, Karen Lane is her name. She was fermenting lichens to create a dye for this like really cool, it was a quilt, but it was made to be like kind of a piece of art that represented science, communicating the greater idea or the greater picture of climate change. And it was like, I like shared it with my whole team. I was like, look at what this girl is doing with dyes. This is such a cool idea. Like, the dyeing process is so disgusting in the industry. And like, truly, it's so bad. It's so bad for the earth. And like, just those little things, it's like everybody that I've worked with has been inspiring in some way and taught me something. And so I think it's just such a good use of time to, take a little bit of time out of your week and work with the younger generation, or not even the younger generation, but the generation that's upcoming in the world of design.
It's definitely cool that students like don't get restricted by, business needs or financial implications. Like, they can just be completely open-ended, and think about ideas that the rest of us are sort of blocked off from, I think.
Yeah. You get to that point where you know too much, and then your creativity starts to struggle a little bit because of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas like these students have such fresh minds and, they do such cool work, and it's just, it reminds you of how your brain used to work when you were at school. And like, I don't know, it definitely breaks up my week in a way that I feel like helps spur my own creativity.
This is cool. I wanted to like hit back to some other form of like kind of mentorship that you found for yourself when you decided you would like to switch into soft goods, and especially like the outdoor gear. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that like when you were preparing your portfolio, finished college, you had to like start working for yourself, just not to be sitting in your parents' basement and eat their food. You actually did something super smart that I admire. You went to hire yourself as a salesperson in REI. And to me, it's kind of also like looking for mentorship, just going into the industry you're after. Because as designers, we design products. And as a consumer, we also buy products. So basically, if you need some guidance how to be designer in a specific field of industry, you can just go and learn more about this product working on some other position in that company. It was interesting. Could you like tell us more? Like, how did it help you?
Yeah. So to expand a little more on that, when I was living in my parents' basement after I graduated, trying to get into the outdoor industry, I got a job at REI just as a salesperson, just on the sales floor. So yeah, there was a lot of ways that was beneficial for me. One being I got super well-versed in all of the big outdoor brands. I just was surrounded by it every day. And so it kind of kickstarted me into a really solid knowledge just of the industry as a whole. But then at the same time, I was also working with, they quickly found out that I, have an eye for design and really enjoy that kind of thing. And so every time there was a new floor plan, which is like, every so often they like totally switch around the way the floor looks, and REI has kind of their guidelines, but each store gets to kind of curate it to appeal to the customer that store mainly has, which I was in Columbus, Ohio. So it's a very interesting outdoor customer. But they knew that I liked doing that. So they always put me on the early shift the morning there was a new floor set. And I got to work with this gal, Jess, who was the manager who managed the changing of the floor set. And I got to work with her and really like pick her brain about consumers, how they shop, and, offer my ideas as well to really set the store up for success as best as possible. And so that was like a total eye opener too, because as an industrial designer, not only are you designing for the end user and the specific use of the product, but you're also designing for the shopper, because your product has to stand out at retail, and you have to be designing for the employee that's setting up the floor set as well, so that they are inspired to, put your product front and center and showcase it in a way that the consumer is going to respond to. So that was super fun. And that was a really cool learning experience for me. And I feel like that is always in the back of my head when I'm working on a product or when I'm in a design review. It's just another aspect of the design parameters, the design parameters that you have to consider. On top of that, just getting to know the customers, especially like I was in Columbus, Ohio, which is, not your core outdoor industry customer by any means. It's not making up the meat of the industry. It's, more people who are weekend warriors or just going on trips to recreate in the outdoors. Typically, I mean, there's definitely a small subset of people in Columbus that are hardcore outdoor athletes, don't get me wrong, but most of the people that were shopping were not that. And so it's just another customer that you have to get to know. And, back to the topic of inclusivity and accessibility, it's those people who, deserve to have a great experience when they're outdoors and are not entirely familiar with all of the ins and outs of outdoor products. And so keeping those people in mind too, as I'm designing, is, I think, really beneficial, because it just makes products more usable and, in my opinion, more accessible in the long run. And then I guess the last thing is, like, I just made a lot of really good connections there. I have friends from that time that are now working at other outdoor companies, because, most people who are working at REI, their end goal isn't just to be on the floor at REI. It's like making their way up in the company or, expanding in the industry. But it's given me a really cool network of people who I can now relate to working in the industry. They're all in different lines of work, but it's really fun to be able to kind of get insight into other companies and how things work at other companies that I haven't been a part of.
How do you suss out companies' intentionality around if they're designing for everyone, or if they're only focusing on elite athletes, or if they're only focusing on, some specific subset? Do you care much about that? And like, yeah, how do you tell if a company or a person that you want to work with is thinking about that or not?
I think it's impossible to tell until you're inside the walls of a company. Typically, I would say the cool thing about working in the industry right now is that customers are pushing up at companies. And because customers are pushing companies to be more inclusive and accessible and all of these good things, REI has now created standards that it's kind of a complicated process, but there's like a long-term goal of like, if you don't hit these things by, I can't remember what year it is, I think it's like 2024 or something, then they're not going to sell your product. And so that's been a really cool thing for me, because no matter who's running the company, like no matter what their values are, what their morals are, REI is super important to any outdoor industry company. And because they have these parameters laid out now, every company has to respond. And it's the same thing with sustainability, which is another huge concern of mine. I'll just say concern, not value. It's like, it's past that. But it's the same thing. They have all these guidelines laid out that you have to meet, and they're auditing companies. So it's really great. I think it's, it's impossible to tell exactly how a company actually values these things from the outside, because every company is saying that they do right now because customers want it. It's a matter of, to me, it's talking to the designers, because, there's always going to be levels of hierarchy that all have different perspectives on what's most important, like whether it be money, whether it be doing good, whether it be, any of these things. But if you talk to the designers at a company, they're the ones that are actually making the difference. Like, I get to make decisions on little touch points on my products or things that I'm sourcing. I get to, nominate recycled fabrics, nominate solution dyed fabrics, whatever that might mean. But I get to do that without asking anybody. And so I think if you get to know the designers at a company and get to have some one-on-one, FaceTime with them before joining a company, to me, that's where the heart of it lies. And if the whole design team is aligned on that, then it's kind of hard to tell them no. Like, if everybody's kind of moving in the same direction, then you can really make a lot of influence without having to get buy-in from the top.
REI, please sponsor us.
I was gonna say, this sounds like such a great plug.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about them.
They're doing good work.
They are. I mean, they're the reason there's change. Yeah. Yeah.
We are in Seattle.
It's great.
It's my favorite store. It's actually super cool that this is our region, right? This is the flagship is here. But also it's interesting how you said that like every region has like different store layout, which shouldn't be obvious, but I never like really thought about it. I think it explains why in Seattle the climbing section is right when you enter.
Yeah.
Now I get it. I wonder how
you live here, Margaret. They know you live here. They're like, we gotta help her out.
I wonder how the REI in Yosemite region looks like.
Yeah.
Is there anything despite climbing?
Yeah. There's skiers there.
Do you have a favorite REI store?
I don't know. I haven't been to all of them. I mean, the Denver one's pretty cool. I just was down there. I was at Outdoor Retailer a couple weeks ago, and we went a day early just to spend time in REI because we don't have one here. And that's obviously like our biggest dealer. So we went down there and we spent like 3 hours in there, and I didn't even cover half the store. I was just like weeding through product, like nerding out. It was awesome.
Cool.
But I don't think I've been to the Seattle one actually.
Field trip.
Yeah. Maybe that's a priority next time I'm up there.
That'd be fun.
I did actually want to sort of transition us to the next thing. It was really interesting to hear you mention that users and customers push some of the changes in the industry and companies, but we noticed that you yourself notice things about yourself in relation to these products and industry opportunities, like whether it's your own privilege and opportunities and things that you're fortunate with. And we wanted to know a little more about how that influences, your work. I'll go ahead and play that clip really quick. It's just a couple of things we clipped together.
Yeah, it worked out. I kind of just put my head down and got to where I wanted to be. I think through a lot of luck and also, privilege, having all the resources to do that, like having access to a sewing machine, having access to the outdoors at a young age to kind of, fuel that passion for me. I think were a lot of things that kind of got me there, and ended up actually buying a Cintiq because I needed to learn how to draw or sketch digitally. And again, like hugely privileged that I was able to like borrow money from my parents and do that. But we just didn't have great Cintiqs at Virginia Tech. We had a couple and they were like always either being used or frozen. And so it was like not really a huge option for us.
It's a call out post for Virginia Tech.
Yikes.
Ginger, do you think you could also play the one that was Monica recognizing how small the industry is? Because I thought it was super interesting, Monica, that like, you're feeling like you're part of this in group, and some people would just be like, yeah, I made it. And instead your reaction is to like immediately think of how that must mean it's not very inclusive. I just thought that was, a thoughtful perspective that not everybody brings in.
Oh no, like I've only been in this industry for like 5 years and I know a lot of these people. It's really cool in a way. And it's also like, ooh, like, is this inclusive?
How have you come to see that and have it come up so quickly for you? Because you're definitely very aware. And then what do you think that does differently for your design process and your like relationship to the spaces that you design in?
I think honestly, the reason I'm aware of this whole idea of privilege is because of the way the world has been going in the past few years, really. Like I wasn't super plugged into, the issues in the world and all of it until really after I graduated college. I just wasn't really paying attention. I was kind of in my own tunnel vision. But, once I moved out to Oregon and like really started plugging into, these like topics in the industry and in the groups of people that I was hanging out with, like the topic of privilege came up a lot and it's super relevant. It's something that, I growing up in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, I had access to really, really good education. And my parents did that intentionally, but also that comes from generations of people working hard, but also, having land and having like, it goes back to, the roots of the country, but I won't get into that because that'll go on for days. But really for me, I'll just like go back one generation, but like my parents were, had the means to help support me going to college. They had the means to decide where they wanted to move us. Like my dad was between a couple different places to transfer to, and they chose the place with the best schools. And so that set me up for a ton of success. I was able to, do some cool alternative programs in high school where I did this like young professionals academy. I got to leave a half a day early and go do an internship. And I was able to see that industrial design exists even. That's a huge privilege. Like not a lot of people are even exposed to that. And so I think for me, just like recognizing that is not true for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people out there that could be really excelling in this field that have no idea that it exists, or maybe have never even picked up a pencil and, drawn. Well, I guess, most kids draw, but you get the picture. I don't know. I think I don't have a solution and I don't have a super clear perspective on this, but it's just something that I think about a lot because it's really, I'm super lucky that, I won't discount the fact that I've worked really hard to get where I am, but I've also had parents that support me both financially in a lot of ways. And like my mom helped me find this career path. And so like parents that were involved, parents that supported me, just being set up in a family that could send me to good schools was such an advantage on most of the country. And so I think for me, it's really clear in kind of the conversations that are going on in the industry right now with, how to reform industrial design education, how can it be better? Because it truly is like right now, there's good industrial design schools and there's subpar industrial design schools. And like, we all know that. We all have looked at the rankings, and you're going to get a different education based on where you go. And it's hard enough graduating industrial design school and figuring out what you're going to do with your life, even when you're at one of those top schools. And, if you go to a school that maybe doesn't have like as many resources or like the same level of, like look at Cincinnati, like they have a badass internship program. That's a huge leg up on a lot of schools. And, there's like different levels of privilege there with like, can you afford to go there? Can you, all these things. And so I don't know, I just think about it a lot. And, when like, especially when it comes to like mentorship and stuff like that, it's like, I do have this huge advantage in a lot of ways where I was able to have the means to put in the hard work that it takes to get to where I am. And that's something that not everybody has. And I think with like another shout out to Offsite, like these different programs that are coming up and even YouTube, like there's a lot of different ways to learn different skill sets now. I think it's potentially getting better, but I hope that we keep going in that direction. And I hope that schools keep recognizing that it's super expensive to get to even the point of graduating as an industrial designer. And so, improving scholarship opportunities. I know Virginia Tech's been trying to improve access to materials because that was a huge thing. Like industrial designers have to pay for all the materials they need to make their projects, and prototyping is such a huge part of getting a job. So, it's all super expensive, and that's not something that's feasible for everybody currently. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I just think about it a lot. And I hope that it gets better, but also who knows?
Who knows? This is great that you're aware of it. And I don't think everyone has the same awareness, and would be great if they did. But despite the privilege, you're actually also in minority in like both spaces, outdoor industry and industrial design. Because you're a woman. And also like maybe it's worth mentioning, but we're recording this episode like 5 days after Roe versus Wade overturn. How do you feel yourself being a woman in the industrial design, outdoor industry? Do you see any inequalities? It's a rhetoric question. And how do you feel in general just working there, as not like the major example of like who outdoor industrial designer is?
So I'm going to preface this with like, I'm going to do my best here to like not call any of my companies out.
Just go for it.
Let's see. So I guess there's a lot of good and interesting, I guess I'll say, in being a woman designer in the outdoor industry. I think, there's a lot, I've experienced plenty of kind of the typical, I guess, sexist stories that you hear out there. The like, oh, you share an idea and then like a few days later, a man shares it and it's well received the second time, not the first time. That like been there. And this is not by any means, I'm not mentioning any companies or anything. Like I've had plenty of internships and jobs and everything. I will say the outdoor industry in particular is most of the big companies were founded by men who were instrumental in starting the industry, really. So a lot of these men, like look at Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard literally invented sport climbing. And like they have a huge amount of influence in the space. But with that being said, there's not a ton of women leaders in the space, and it's getting better for sure. And the cool thing is, again, I don't know if this is people starting to see that women are really valuable to have on your leadership team for that different perspective, or if it's customers pushing up. Because I think it's maybe both. Like you get a lot of pressure from customers to see more diversity in general. And part of that is more women. There's many other parts of that as well. But I've seen, even just in my short time in the industry, I've seen a lot of improvement in seeing more women in power in the industry. Not even necessarily just at the companies I've worked at, but I pay attention to the whole industry, and seeing more women elected into positions of, high influence, like C-level positions and, director positions and things like that. I will say, the really cool thing is I've worked at both of the companies in the outdoor industry I've been at, Roughwear and Big Agnes. I've worked with some really awesome female designers, um, and for the most part, like the teams I've worked on have been really receptive to the feedback of women. Um, it seems like the direction the industry is going is seeing the value in having that female perspective at the table. And I think there's a long way to go in the outdoor industry in general from a diversity lens, but I do think the male versus female dynamic is improving quite a bit. And so, yeah, like for example, right now I work with a team of actually mostly women, and it's incredible. And we have a really good balance of perspectives because of that. But yeah, it's definitely, I've definitely, like, not even just in my design career, but I've had some things, said to me in the past of like, yeah, we just hired you because you're a woman and we like needed to say we had a woman on our team, or like that literally happened to me one time, which is wild. It's like a really weird thing to like sit and smile back at. And yeah, and plenty of times where like you get either ignored or you're on a team with somebody who acts in a way that if you were to act that way, you would get fired. I've had that experience as well, but there is still I've definitely experienced a bit of that boys club culture where, if you're a man and you're performing in a certain way or acting in a certain way, it's okay because you're a bro. But if you're a woman, that's not okay. So that's definitely still a thing. But in general, I do think, just the workforce in general, maybe not even the outdoor industry, is moving in a direction of seeing value in women, and hopefully pay is getting to to the same place, but you never know. Yeah, I do wish that companies in general would increase update benefits and stuff like that to encourage more women to be around.
The other part of what we wanted to ask about was your decision to do a presentation with WID Seattle, because when we first approached you, I think you expressed some hesitance, but also realizing that it's really hard to get women to present, not just about outdoor industry, but I think design in general or anything that it is that we do. So are some of these things that you talked about what you were considering when you made the decision to yes, I'm going to present and sort of be seen in the public eye?
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to generalize too much because I know a lot of, I don't know. I know there's like a whole spectrum of people out there in general. But I do think in general, I just said I don't want to generalize, and that's said in general. Oh man. I think from what I've experienced, you do see a lot more male representation in the industrial design space. And that's just all of industrial design, not outdoor industry specifically. But I try to stay pretty plugged in with what's going on in the industry and like who's standing out, and what are people's, like what kind of quality of work is out there from people and stuff like that. And you guys had approached me like right about the same time that I was getting really fed up that the only industrial designers I followed on Instagram really were men. I mean, I have like the handful of friends that I have really, but like the larger influence on, social media and like what comes into at least my frame of view is from men. And there's a lot of really talented men out there. Like it's for a good reason. But then I was thinking about it and I'm like, okay, I know a lot of really talented women, that are industrial designers, and I've seen their work, and I've seen that it's up to the same par, if not better, than like all these men that are just posting all the time on Instagram or whatever. And so yeah, you guys approached me kind of at the same time that I was like, I need to make an Instagram account and I need to post my sketches. Like I can do this too, whatever. Just kind of like a, feminist rage moment. But I don't know. I still have a hard time with this where it's like, what am I bringing to the table that's unique? Why do I deserve to be on a podcast? I don't know. I still don't know. But talking to you guys and hearing,
We made you.
This is against my will, help. No, but I think when I was talking to you guys and you all were like sharing that a bunch of women that you've talked to have the same sentiment of like, I don't have anything to talk about. Like, why would I do a talk? Or, it's kind of like the imposter syndrome thing or whatever you want to call it. But like that really motivated me to push myself to get outside of my comfort zone and like, just get out there more, because I do think having a woman to look up to that's doing what you want to do is super powerful. And, I've only been working for like 6 years or something, but like, that's enough to be able to like help someone out and help. Like there has to be some people out there. I mean, for all of us, like I'm sure there's people out there that are looking to do exactly what we're doing. And, even if that's just one person, that's great. But yeah, I don't know. You guys just talked me into it, I guess. That's what I was saying.
I just feel like there are lots of thoughtful men out there, but so many of them are not like, oh, do I have enough to say? Or like, should I really like be the person they'll just be like, oh, somebody wants to hear from me. Like, of course they do,
Yeah.
like, let me go share.
Well, and I'm sure it's like society telling it, like it's,
yeah,
it comes from a place of women don't work, like that was the reality back in the day. And like, we're still coming out of that, even though it's a lot better now, it's still ingrained in our history. And I don't know, it's like, I guess just like knowing that. And like, it wasn't too long ago that like our grandparents were, just housewives or whatever, because that was normal. Now that's impossible because everything's expensive as hell, but that's a side note. No, but like, I do think there's something in that history being ingrained in us that like kind of manifests itself in this like unsureness of having something valuable to offer. But yeah, we got to get through it.
One step at a time, we would like make the way forward.
Yeah.
We would be just like little small tile, but everyone would get this little brick and we will be in a better place in some years.
Yeah.
If we didn't believe that we could do better, then we wouldn't even start this effort to try to build community and put something out there for other people to listen to.
One step at a time.
Find like some support.
If I can move us along, I actually wanted to bring up the next clip about your 3-person team that you work on, who all happen to be women, and perhaps they also would be reticent to talk about themselves, but you can brag about them. We wanted to know if it was intentionally formed or like just an stroke of good luck. We can talk a little bit about like how you like meld the different skills and backgrounds together.
My team right now, we're kind of split into designers and developers, and we just had a new designer start. So right now there's 3 of us designers and we're all women. And so I know speaking to this crew, we can appreciate that, especially in an outdoor industry brand. So we were chatting today, and the gal who works on our like tents and furniture comes from a mechanical engineering background. We all have the same job title. We're all senior product designers. And so she comes from a mechanical engineering background. So she's actually like taking design sketching classes on the side because she like wants to get a little bit more into industrial design, but she's like a genius too in her own way. Like she teaches me new stuff every day and she's awesome. And then the new gal who just started is going to be working on our sleeping bags and sleeping pads. And we actually make jackets too. they're awesome. I'll just plug them. They're actually really sweet products. So anyway, she comes from a fashion background. And so we have this like really cool trio of experience, and we're all doing the same types of projects, but like giving each other feedback is really interesting because it's like we all have such different, I guess, training, for lack of a better word. The gal who just started had never like done digital sketching really. She did a lot of hand sketching and like then just going straight to Illustrator, because that's kind of a fashion process. And I was like showing her Procreate on the iPad and like doing a whole demo, and it just like it felt really cool that we were all collaborating in that way. And then like I was 3D printing frame sheets the other day and like totally leaning on the mechanical engineer. Like I think it shows that like you can really come at these types of jobs from a lot of different angles and add value. Yeah. So I think because of the way that our company is laid out, we do have a super wide variety of products. And so I wouldn't say that it was intentionally laid out where we all have these very different backgrounds, but it makes a ton of sense. Like if you think about technical bags, luggage, packs, like all the stuff that I'm working on, it makes sense that I have an industrial design background. I don't necessarily need full on mechanical engineering skills, but I also don't necessarily need the fashion design side of it where you're doing, more of the body form, the, working with these lightweight materials and draping and stuff like that. But I will say like I'll just use like a technical backpack, for example, like a trekking pack. You've got all of these different components of the product. You've got kind of the chassis that interacts with your body, the strap system, for lack of a better term, like shoulder straps, hip belt. That has to fit really well or else you're going to have a bad time. And so there's some aspects of fashion design that can really come in handy there with knowing the human body really well, knowing about draping, knowing about the curves and being able to analyze the curves of a human body, because they have like a super extensive education in that world. And then if you think about like a mechanical engineering standpoint, you have to transfer loads, which I'll just leave that at that. Like it's complicated. You're transferring the load from this pack to the human body and figuring out how to balance it out, figuring out where you need to put a frame sheet, how you need to bend a frame, and how those hard components are going to be strong enough to manage the load that's being put in the bag. And then I think the industrial design standpoint comes in like melding all of these things and also then considering the usability, the aesthetics, all of it. And so it's a really cool trio that we've got going on. And now I guess that was like a couple months ago that we had that first talk, but who I was referring to as the new gal, because she had just started, she's been on for a few months now. And she's also got like this really cool eye for color. And so she's brought a ton to our team from a color standpoint that I would not have been able to provide. And she just also has like this really cool mindset of like, I don't know, she just comes with a lot of really different types of ideas that have spurred some really cool directions for products. And so with the three of us, we have a really cool dynamic of different skill sets and just strengths. And it's been really fun to work with them. I've learned a lot about kind of both of their worlds, and I feel like they've probably learned a lot about my world too. And we're not constantly collaborating because we all have a ton of projects to do kind of in our own lanes. But then when we come together to brainstorm, like either when one of us is stuck on something or we try to do reviews, like every time we're sending out specs, it's really fun. It's really fun to just get together and brainstorm. And there's like absolutely no judgment. No one's like talking over each other. No one's, overpowering the conversation. It's just a really good dynamic, which I think is unique to a group of women. So that's been really fun. And I'm super grateful that I get to work with those two. They're an awesome team.
A tiny bit more on that. I think you specified a lot like how coming together from the three backgrounds was maybe not intentional, but has benefits. But I think just like looking at hiring managers and people that are in positions of power where they can like actually impact hiring, do you think that your team or your company did something on purpose to attract that talent and like seek it out and try to like, equalize the representation on your team?
I can talk on that broadly a little bit. But I think I think just the nature of the products attracted the different types of people, and the different backgrounds lend themselves so well to the category that those candidates really stand out. So like, for example, somebody with a mechanical engineering background can do really well with something like a tent or a piece of camp furniture where you're having to deal with like these really complex, you know, tent poles and figuring out how they need to interact with each other, interact with the fabric in order to hold a structure. Whereas somebody with a fashion design background is going to do much better with sleeping bags, because sleeping bags are basically like a puffy coat, you know, they're just like a different form. And so they have like this, you know, different skill set that works really well with those categories. And so I think, I don't know if it was necessarily intentional. Like, I don't think there's any reason we wouldn't have hired somebody with an industrial design background to do any of these jobs. I just think that those candidates stood out because they had like a good set of skills that apply to that category.
I love that you said that, because I think it's a good example how people who not necessarily studied industrial design, who went like fashion or like mechanical engineering, how they can find their way to do industrial design and products.
Totally.
Would be great if like more people like could see it, that this is like path for them, and like someone who's talented, I'm sure they will find their way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
This does sound like a really good plug for Big Agnes, though I don't know if I've necessarily heard about a lot of companies being so open-minded to like not siloing disciplines and roles, and recognizing the skills that just relate to their product categories. I think especially maybe in larger companies and maybe very hardware oriented companies, it's like this person does this because of their background and this person does this other thing, and they can't switch.
Yeah. You know, I will say though, it was the same at Roughwear for me. Like, we did have, I guess most of our designers came from an industrial design background, but we had some people with some less conventional paths that were on the team. And so like, we had somebody that came from, I think it was like biomedical engineering, that ended up joining the team. She was more on like the testing side of things, but she did great. And I think, honestly, I think the reason for it is that the outdoor industry, like at least these companies that I've worked for, they come from a place of like starting in their garage. They don't come from a place of like, I'm an industrial designer, so I'm going to start a company. It's like, no, these were like outdoor people that needed a different type of gear. And so they made a different type of gear for themselves. And then it worked. Truly, it's like a lot of outdoor companies started that way and just started in whoever's garage. And so I think that just builds a company that doesn't, until they like sell, and then they have like a holding company, and then it kind of changes, I think. But these like smaller private companies, especially, I think have much more of an open mind, because it's like, yeah, I just hired my buddy to do the financials, you know, like that's how it started, because these people weren't running huge companies. It was like, let's just do it if people want to buy it or whatever. And so I think having that mindset of like, you know, a lot of people have value, a lot of people have potential, and we'll make it work is definitely present in the outdoor industry, and probably really with any like smaller company.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like nobody shows up on their first day in an outdoor industry job and just like already knows how to do it, unless they've been working in the outdoor industry. Like an industrial designer, a fashion designer, like none of you guys actually have every bit of it that you would need, right? You kind of have to learn when you get there.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, I bet that's true with every job. Like, I don't know for sure, but I think every company kind of has its own process and like its own way of doing things. And so you're gonna have to pivot and change based on what that company needs. And so you just have to be flexible and, you know, be willing to learn, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah.
Kind of cutting here, but did we want to talk more about design school? I don't know if you're comfortable going off on that, Monica, or if you already feel like you said what you wanted to say, but we can dive in more here.
I'm fine either way.
What do you think, Ginger?
We shouldn't trash design schools.
No, not trash. Not trash it.
Balance where we kind of had a few things to say about it earlier. Although I think that maybe some of what we were gonna talk about could be redeeming. We were gonna ask about like what creates the baseline of a designer and their education. Like, how can you get that? Some of it comes from school, right? But
Yeah, no, definitely not trash it, Margaret. I just think Monica knows. Like, I feel like Monica has an interesting perspective on design school that I don't know. I feel like you've thought through a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think I have a lot of good things to say about design school too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I will say, like, at least in my experience, Virginia Tech did a really good job at teaching design thinking and the process, which once you have the process down, you can do anything. You just have to be willing to learn the skills. And so I think, there's some things that appear to be lacking at most design schools, like having a little bit more knowledge about like business. I guess I feel like design school prepares you really well for like going to work at a consultancy or something. Whereas if you work for a company, there's a lot of different factors that have to be added into it. And so this is speaking from my experience only. Like, obviously, I haven't been at any other schools, but that is something I felt like was lacking from my experience. And through working with students at offsite, it seems like that's kind of true across the board. It's like these things that designers graduate and they've had this like really cool ride with doing all these projects where there's not really any real world constraints. There's some every few projects, they'll be like, okay, now like talk about how you would market it or something like that. But there's a lot of other constraints that aren't considered as much. So I think that's something that could be improved for sure. But I will say, like, I've been really into this offsite program and like working with them and seeing how people can like really quickly work on their skills. And most of them come from a design background of some sort. And it's a bummer that they have to spend more money to get the skills that they need to break into the industry. But one of the things that I found is that if people have that baseline of practicing the design process, which is what you do throughout all of ID school, then it's possible to kind of go anywhere. You just have to be willing to put the work in and like really dial in your skills. And so I think that's super valuable. Plus, like, you have 4 years of practicing your sketching and practicing, whether it be your CAD skills, whether it be whatever you're kind of focusing in on, you have 4 years to dial it in, which is a lot of practice. And so I think design school does give you that. And I think it's really crucial for people to go to design school. So don't get me wrong on that. But I do think it could be better for sure. It could be, if you're paying tens of thousands of dollars a year to go get this education, it'd be nice if the school could provide materials and, the things that you need to get that education. I don't know, university bureaucracy is a whole thing. But, like there's that factor. And then I do wish that I think some universities do a good job at this where they bring in more professionals to kind of teach classes and be a part of. Are you doing that, Margaret?
I was lucky to be in a university that was bringing professionals for like semester projects, and we also had the materials and cherry on top. I studied in Europe. It was also free.
Oh
my
come
God.
on, get out of here.
I was totally about to say, it's European. It's not fair.
Okay. So moral of the story is everybody should go to school in Europe.
Moral of the story, the US sucks.
But if you're American, you have to pay.
That's fair. Fair. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
Europeans, like, you're paying taxes over there, so that's probably where it's going.
Yeah, but then I ended up here, so the system is broken in a way.
You got the shit under the stick. No, it's cool.
I mean, our school provided materials, but it was like, you would have to redo it after school if you wanted it to be in materials that were like legitimate at all for what the product would be, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yikes. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of really good things about design school and creating the community and like learning. I think design school is like way more legit than a lot of other programs. Like my friends that studied like the pre-PT programs and stuff like that, where it's like you graduate and you literally can't get a job anywhere. It's like, you have to go to graduate school or else you can't do anything. Like, I don't know, at least design school is like, you do get your foundational schools or skills. And you also have this cool, I don't know. I mean, at least where I was, we had Monday, Wednesday, Friday studio from 1 to 4. And it really felt like an office environment. And so I think from that standpoint, like, you learn time management, you learn all those things, but I don't know, you also have to be willing to, like, it's all so self-motivated. You got to be willing to like really push yourself and motivate yourself. So I don't know. I think it's good in that way, and that it, like, I don't know, it gives you a taste of what the real world's like in a way, but there's a lot of other things that you don't learn about that I think could be improved.
Which is another aspect of industrial design. Without pushing yourself, there's basically no win. It's not like, I think it's like not like going to any other like degree.
Yeah.
Whatever you study, you have to push yourself. But like design school, if you don't push yourself, you basically just waste your time and you come out with nothing.
Right.
Like portfolio and the first internship is like only how much you were willing to really invest in it. And like sleeping in studio, like I was sleeping in studio quite a few nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had like people hooking up in studio.
Let's get the gossip.
wasn't me, but it did happen. Far away lands, but that's the reality. That's how much you spent in the studio, basically.
It's so true.
Industrial design student. Yeah.
I can't tell if Margaret's going to scare people away from design or entice them into the program.
It's not easy. It's not easy. When I listen to like people going to college and going to parties and going to like sports game and everything, I'm like so jealous. I never did it. I was even on Sundays in studio.
You and me both.
Basically going to get a kebab. Going to a kebab with my ex-boyfriend was a date, because then we were going back to the studio.
Yeah.
But it was kind of it's kind of a lifestyle.
I loved all those nights in the studio. I feel like that is the just like seminal experience of design that you can't get if you don't go to school. It's so amazing to me. You can get it kind of professionally, but it's just not the same energy of just like, all-nighters endlessly.
You don't want it though when it's for a job. I'm like, I don't want to be here past like 6.
Oh God, no, that seems very toxic.
But in studio, it was like everyone was there, and then you like make the run to like whatever late night restaurants open, and everyone goes together, and I don't know, it was fun in hindsight.
Yeah, I worked in the cafe in the basement of our art building, and so whenever I like closed the cafe, I would then come up with all of the food that had been there that we were like supposed to be throwing away. Sorry, UW, don't get me in trouble. And and we would just like feast on whatever random like donuts and I don't know what were in the fridge.
You were probably the hero.
Damn, I missed out. I was born a year too early.
It was a hit. But we were pretty desperate for food, so
Yep.
Easy bar.
Oh man.
So with that in mind, that the grind starts and it apparently never ends. What's in store for your future, and like, what are you hopeful and curious about? Because you mentioned that your sort of dream job in design changes all the time as you learn things, and maybe every few years it's really not the same as what you thought it was.
Yeah, I don't know. And ever since I talked to you guys, it's changed like 6 times too. So that's where I'm at now.
That's fantastic.
I think I have a really short attention span. But I think right now I'm definitely enjoying where I'm at and like the products I'm working on at Big Agnes. And so hoping to stay in that world for a bit. I love working on just like technical backpacks a lot. It's been really fun. And so hopefully staying there for a bit. And then I think at some point I would like to try out just like contracting. It seems fun, and it seems like there's a lot of cool like smaller startup brands that could use the help of somebody with some experience. And so I don't know, I'd like to do some of that at some point. But then I think eventually like I do want to be a leader. I don't know, like right now I'm going to say I would love to be like a leader in the outdoor industry, like a design director somewhere, kind of in that type of role. But I don't know, might change tomorrow. But like, I just like want to do it all. That's the issue. And so that's why I think contracting at some point in my career would be really fun, just to like get a really wide variety of experiences and work on a bunch of different types of products and different types of people. Not work on different types of people, work with different types of people. But I don't know when that's going to be. I think right now I'm going to stay put for a bit, and then see where that takes me.
You had the chance to make your employer so nervous. Oh, I'm looking right now, all the time.
Right? I know.
Yeah, it looks like we're coming to end. Okay, Monica, please focus. Yeah. This is where the surprise question comes.
It's not a surprise.
Please focus.
Also, please brag about yourself. Please brag about yourself. We want it.
Monica.
Oh man.
I have the last question for you. And focus, please. What is your favorite color?
Oh my god, I'm gonna fall out
of my fucking chair. Oh my god. That's a trick. That's even a harder question, really.
Not quite.
Yeah.
We had like, what's your favorite animal in play? I think it's the color.
You know, I'm really into like okay. Have you guys seen the Toyota colorway that came out recently? I posted all about it on Instagram.
That moon one.
Lunar Rock.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's like a sage green gray, and it's amazing. And so I think that's my favorite color right now. That specific colorway of that car brand. Look up Lunar Rock Toyota.
It's very outdoorsy color.
Wow.
It is. It's like, and it's pretty like dull, but it's really like when I see my neighbor has a truck in that color, and every day I'm like, oh, it's beautiful.
I like it. I dig it.
This is a great answer and like so intuitional. We appreciate it.
How you like that focus?
This is amazing.
That is so funny. For the not surprise question, that is, you don't have to focus at all, apparently. We wanted to know, like, what you bring to design that is completely uniquely you. Everyone has different facets of themselves that we don't come out of cookie cutters, and what we bring to the industry is unique, but we don't always talk about it. And I think that recognizing that diversity is really good for this whole community. So maybe in the spirit of things that people don't know immediately about you that affect design and your approach to it.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking about this a little bit, like trying to figure out, I don't know. I struggle because I'm like, I don't know if I have anything that's like entirely unique to myself, but
shit, that's imposter syndrome.
But I know, but still I'm like, what? I don't know. I was gonna say, like, I think just like specifically to kind of like my field and where I'm at in the outdoor industry, I think I have a unique perspective of like being from the Midwest, and, you know, not being the like traditional cookie cutter outdoorsman person that typically ends up in this industry. I think I bring that perspective. Also, I think I have this like weird wiring in my head where I constantly want to be like devil's advocate or like bring the opposite side of the story. Even if it's like my own idea, I'm like constantly presenting things and then contradicting myself and being like, but this could be the negative to that, or, you know, that kind of thing, which I think helps a lot in design review scenarios where you're just making sure that you're considering other perspectives in your decisions. And it also has helped a lot with like making design decisions and always having a backup plan and like ready to go. I'm like constantly thinking of like this seems like the right direction. What could go wrong, or what is, you know, the devil's advocate view of why we made that decision. So I think that's probably kind of the biggest thing I have to offer. That's not just like a traditional ID skill. It's, I don't know. I've always been told, like, I've always loved to argue. And so I think that might be part of where that comes from. But like, I don't know, I'm like always up for a good debate or argument. And I have reined it in a little bit since I've grown up, but like I used to just argue even if I didn't believe in what I was saying, like just for the sake of arguing, just because like for a good argument. And so I think that's part of it. It's like, you know, this innate desire to just question what's in front of me. And so I think that's what's unique to me in a way.
It's great because like not every woman out there would speak up the mind and get in trouble as a result.
Be a woman that argues with everyone, including yourself.
Yeah. Mostly yourself.
That's the like teaser for the podcast.
Yeah, Monica, you could say it out loud, like with your voice. Woman who argues with everyone, including herself.
Now I like Ginger saying it.
It's because I too secretly love to argue with everyone, including myself.
Yeah.
I actually think that might be a designer trait. Like, I think that we're very, very interrogative people. And I think that we care a lot about like justice or like truth or like the right thing, you know?
Yeah. Good ones, at least.
Okay, good point.
I've worked with a lot of people who just want their idea to be the thing.
Ugh.
That's not mature. You should argue
sucks.
with your own ideas.
I agree.
It's like a competitive streak in design, but it's not true competition if you don't also win against yourself, right?
Or lose against yourself. Oh, I love it.
I think that was an awesome answer. And yeah, that's good stuff. Man, Monica, you're super fun to talk to. Once again.
You guys are super fun to talk to. I'm stoked to listen to every episode.
It's not like we have a lot yet, but we're working. I'm so stoked we do that.
Yeah, I'm so excited to listen. I listen to podcasts all the time, so I'm like, cue it up, baby. Let's listen to all your podcasts.
That's really sweet of you.
We hope there will be more than 2 episodes.
Oh my gosh, Margaret. She's like the devil on our shoulder.
We work on that.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be concluding this episode. Thank you everyone for listening. We're Beyond Ray. And it's a pleasure to run this podcast for you where we tell stories from people that we think are doing great work in the industry and you need to hear from them. We're doing this because there's all kinds of people out there getting into design or in the industry right now who feel like they need to find their place, who feel maybe a little isolated, and we want to bring everyone together. We want to build this community for everyone. That means that we need to tell those stories and for people to like get in touch with us, talk to us, be involved, you know, engage with us because we want to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Monica, for talking to us today. This is the double thanks because you already did a presentation with us earlier for our community. And please let us know where the listeners can find you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been super fun getting to know you guys and chatting with you. If you want to connect with me, you can either find me on Instagram. My handle is monica.i.d. Or you can just add me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message. And I'd love to chat with you guys and get to know more awesome ladies in this community or men, anyone really. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been super fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining.
PSA, no blank requests. Send a note. Talk to people. Don't be anonymous.
Don't be a creep on LinkedIn.
Don't just add me. I'm gonna deny it. I'm gonna deny it if you don't send a note, okay?
Here's your warning. Send a note.
I'm not checking my LinkedIn just for the record.
Oh, cool.